Welcome to the African Rainforest Pavilion once again. My name is Gabe. I have the pleasure of working here with some of our animals. And we here at the Toronto Zoo are all about trying to connect people and animals with conservation science to fight extinction. And today we are really pleased to show you our spotted neck otters. And we're actually going to start by doing something extra special and going behind the scenes where Jen, another one of the awesome keepers here at the pavilion, is waiting for us. So let's go. You might recognize if you've been to the zoo before.
Hi guys, I'm Jen. So this is the background of the spotted neck otter. So this is Fred right here, and Lila is in the back. So we're just going to do a little training session. We're just going to use our target stick, so Fred knows how to put his nose to his target stick. And then we're just going to give him a little meatball, and he does it. So we like to train them in this big box. It's kind of like a nest box for them. They might sleep here overnight, but we've modified it a bit so that they actually have to squeeze their bodies down this little chute, and that's how we can check them over. We can also do things like injection training or ultrasound training. Just a better way for us to get a look at them, because we only have protected contact. We never are free contact with these guys, so we never go in with them. So we have to make modifications. Alright. Okay. You can get a good look at Fred there. So he's quite big. You can kind of see his little claws down there, and he's holding really nice. That's good. Okay. And he's got really sharp teeth. So, whoop, there we go. These guys are omnivores. They will eat some other stuff, but their main diet is fish. Oh boy. We have one more duck. Oh, yeah. Here, Fred. Come on, Fred. Come on, Fred. Good boy. He always gets a snack for going out. There we go. So you can kind of see his neck there. He's got two little spots. So that's how they get their name. Spotted neck otter. And Lila, of course, is being shy over there, but you can kind of see the spots on her neck a little bit more. And he's giving you a good look at his feet. So they have webbed feet because they spend a lot of time in the water. And he's got that really long tail, and that kind of acts like a little rudder for them as they swim. Alright, so that's all the meat I have for him. Oh, good look at his teeth. So Fred does like to roll around a lot. He's scent markings, so sometimes we'll give him snow in the wintertime. He really loves it. He rolls all over it. But he looks a little goofy doing it. So these guys are from Africa. There's 9 types of otter species. So these guys are kind of sub-Saharan Africa. So like the bottom half of Africa, I guess. And they mostly live in areas around lakes and rivers. So they spend a lot of time in the water. They don't really like to go much further than 10 meters away from the water. So that's where they'll kind of build their sleeping dens, or for having babies. That's where they'll build their dens, right on the riverbank. So kind of underneath tree root areas, or just digging in the mud. Oh, he seems like he's tired out now. So we're also going to give them some enrichment today. So I've got a couple things, and you'll stay out front, and I can throw them out back from the holding. Lila's feeling really cute. She's just a little yawn. And you might have heard a little chirping noise. Oh, there we go. There's another one. That's Fred. making that chirping noise. That's how they kind of communicate with each other. And these guys were just in breeding mode, so Fred was following Lila everywhere and making those noises all the time. Alright, ahead up here, we have a whole enrichment section for them. These guys are really smart, they really like to play. So today we're going to give them some popsicles, and we got some eggs, and we're also going to give some balls. Lila really enjoys the balls, she likes to roll around in the water with them. We just have some scallops and shrimp in here for today. And Lila also really enjoys veggies. So we've got some carrots and celery, and she'll probably play with this as well. Alright, let's head back to the front.
Thanks, Jen. All right, we're gonna go watch from the front area. Then Jen's gonna throw in the hoop for us so we can see all the action. We'll come right up and close. You can see Fred over there. You'll notice they actually have a little heat lamp above the place where Fred likes to do some of his rolling and scent marking. Because these guys live in tropical Africa, it would be a little bit too cold for them to be outside for much of the year here in Canada. So we make sure that things are very warm for them, and the heat lamp provides us an extra warm spot. It is always above 20 degrees in this exhibit, but it's extra warm under that spot, up to 30. We make sure the water is a nice toasty, kind of 23 to 25 degrees. So these guys do not actually have an outdoor exhibit here at the zoo because we always need to make sure we're monitoring their temperature. So this is Lila you're seeing on the screen right now. She's our female, and here comes a popsicle for her. Oh, but Fred got it. There's another one. So even though they are lovers, they do sometimes have a bit of competition between them. Fred, even though he's twice the size of Lila, quite a big-sized otter, very big for the species, for the spotted neck otter. Lila's more of a typical size. Usually the males are somewhere around, a third bigger than the females, but Fred is twice the size of Lila. Lila's about 4 kilograms in weight. Fred is a little over 8 kilograms in weight. He's a big guy. So you'll notice, you can see Fred kind of at his spot. They have a favorite spot to eat their their treats. You can see Lila's a good, very, very quick moving. She's always moving somewhere, unless she has something to sit and munch for a minute. So often, Lila will steal food from Fred when it's first down. So it's actually a little surprising that she let him get the first one right now. They're keeping us moving. That's what otters are all about. Otters are part of the family Mustelidae, which here in Canada includes our native Canadian river otter, as well as creatures like the pine marten, which you might have seen up north if you're really lucky, or the mink, which is similar to an otter in lots of ways. They're a little more terrestrial than otters usually are, but they're also in that family. And probably the best known animals are weasels in that family. And they all have the same basic body shape, that long body, fairly short legs, and small heads with small ears. And that's because they spend a lot of their time going through tunnels. So the home of an otter like this in the wild is called a holt. Beautiful. See, she'll dive down and get all the little bits of the treats as they melt here. Yes, an otter, you can call it a den or a holt. There's lots of different words that can be used to describe groups of otters or otters' homes. And that's usually a burrow that they've dug themselves out of the riverbank. These plants are getting a bit in the way here. So an otter like this can hold its breath for a few minutes, not maybe as long as we would normally expect. This species is fairly poorly studied in the wild because, again, they tend to have these underground burrows and they live in the thick brush that's around rivers and big lakes. So it's hard to get a lot of really good data on their everyday life, but we learn what we can. There we go. So we think, from what we can see here at the zoo and our best estimates from wild otters, they can probably hold their breath for about 5 minutes, which is pretty long, longer than, you know, humans generally can, certainly. But as you see here, they particularly when they're eating, they're not going to swallow their food down underwater. They're going to take it up to the surface and eat it there. And particularly an otter like Lila here loves to be on her back, chewing her food as messily as she can. And an interesting thing here is that you'll notice she kind of really smacks her lips. She's going nom 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 when she's eating. And that's because their mouths and their jaws don't work like ours do. They can't chew in the same way like we could, or if you think of a cow chewing its cud. They can't do that. Their jaws only go up and down. So that's why you see them kind of tilt their head back and chomp their mouth vertically a lot when they're swallowing something. All right, here comes the hard-boiled eggs. Now, it's always fun to watch them get these. Fred's got his in his mouth, but often Lila has, because she's smaller, a bit more trouble in her mouth, so she grabs it with her forepaws, and she'll carry it around in her front legs. Oh, she dropped it. And down it goes. There we go, she's got it again. As Jen said, these guys primarily do eat fish in the wild, but like the otters that live here in North America, they'll eat whatever they can get that's good for them. So if it's a crab or a small mollusk of some kind, if they can get birds' eggs or baby birds, particularly something like a duckling in the wild, they would do that if they could. And the other kind of otter that you'll see throughout much of sub-Saharan or the more southerly parts of Africa is called a clawless otter. And they don't have claws in their front feet, so they're really good at grabbing and manipulating small items like crabs or eggs like this. You can see that Lila has to work a little bit harder, but she still managed it. She's looking for the yolk there. There she goes. She just wants to eat the yolk. Yummy! Nom, 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 nom. Perfect. So even though she does have claws and webbing on her front feet, that's the other thing that the clawless otter has. They're actually lacking webbing on those front feet, so they're really good little fingers to grab things. These guys don't have that, but you can see they still are really good with their front paws and being able to carry things. And that's actually something that sometimes makes it a bit of a challenge to care for these guys. As Jen was also saying earlier, we do not ever go into the same habitat, into their habitat, unless the animals have been moved out first. Did she steal Fred's egg? I think she did. Oh, Fred. Poor Fred. Lila is definitely the boss in this relationship. There she goes. So yes, Lila is really good at grabbing food and running out with it. So when we try to move Lila off exhibit so we can come in and clean or give them new toys or other things that we are less easy to throw over into the exhibit, we have to rely on them coming inside so we can close the door and then come in and put those things out for them. But Lila's so good at carrying things that often she'll grab her food in her front paws and shift out really, really quickly before we can close the door. So she can be a challenging animal for us to work with sometimes. But as you can see, she's just so cute. She's really hard to actually get angry at. We see that we're getting some comments and questions here. Let me try to read a few. Is their fur soft or hard? Their fur is notoriously soft. These guys have very luxurious fur, which, like a lot of different otter species, which is one reason they are in a bit of trouble in the wild. The IUCN lists this species of otter as near threatened, which means they're not quite they're not endangered yet, for example, but their population is declining everywhere that they are looking at this animal, everywhere they're managing or looking at populations in the wild across Africa. And one of the reasons for that is because their fur is so nice that people will kill them and use their fur for clothes. That's not the primary thing that's threatening them right now, though. Primarily, that is habitat loss. Either people destroying natural areas to build sometimes homes or more industrial areas or agriculture areas as Africa develops, or because of pollutants in the water, again, as industry increases in some parts of Africa, or there's more erosion because of desertification or because of changes in agriculture knocking down forests. This means a lot more mud and other things are getting into the water, which makes it really hard for these guys to see to find their food. These guys tend to be a diurnal species. They come out in the daytime, so they need light and they usually need clear water to find their food very well, unlike some other species. So they can lose habitat very easily if the water where they live becomes polluted. So that's the biggest threat to them in the wild today. As we already said, they do love eating fish, and that's the other big threat to them right now, is that fishermen who are relying on a lot of the same species of fish to feed their families at home will sometimes kill an otter like this if they see it, because they think it's a threat and a challenge to them, which is really sad. So there are some initiatives around Africa to try to promote conservation and valuing these animals as a natural part of the ecosystem. They really don't eat that many fish on the whole, certainly not enough to threaten any of the fish stocks out there that people are relying on. So just trying to teach local people who are often very poor and just trying to care for their families that, you know, these animals that are out here, while they may be a competitor in the very basic sense that they're eating the same food source, they're not really a threat to your own survival. So please let them do their thing too. They can be a valuable thing to have around, not only for keeping the ecosystem in balance so that fish don't overpopulate and throw the whole system out of whack so that they all die off, but also because ecotourism loves seeing animals like this. So, and increasingly people are finding ways to help people who visit Africa to see these otters, and they're a great draw, as you can see. A cool thing on a recent paper that came out, or one that I recently read, is that these guys have what are called latrines, which is just normal places where they like to poop. And they'll always go back to the same places to poop. So in wild places in Africa, scientists and villagers and anyone who's around the area can find a place where otters like to poop, and then they can just set up a blind or a hide there for people, tourists or whoever, to come and watch them, because they know they're going to keep coming back to that spot to get to poop. And so that's a really good way for people to see the animals going to where they're already going to go, and you don't have to disturb them when they're hunting or anything like that. You can see she's getting just the last little bits of egg out of the shell there, Lila is. All right, let's look some more questions here. How old are they? So Fred is just about 20 years old. We're not exactly sure how old he is. And Lila is 12, will be turning 12 years old actually tomorrow. Her birthday is tomorrow. So we are using the extra enrichment today as a bit of a celebration for her. So she'll be 12 years old. In the wild, a 12-year-old otter is doing really well. 12 to 15 is kind of their lifespan in the wilds. Here in human care, we actually don't really know. We haven't had, there aren't a ton of these spotted neck otters in human care around the world today. So we don't really know their maximum lifespan. Definitely over 20. And Fred is 20, and he's still very healthy. What else do we have here? Are they married? I mean, they're very in love with each other. As Jen was saying, they just kind of came out of another session of romance where they really didn't want to be apart for any reason. So it's cute that they really are very affectionate with each other. In the wild, these otters are more polygamous. Is that what I mean? Promiscuous, I think, would be better, because both males and females will breed with other individuals. But because it's just the two of them here, they really formed a mated pair, which is nice. These guys are really adaptable, which means they'll just, whatever the situation is, they'll run with it and try to survive. Which again, it helps because they eat lots of different kinds of food, and also works for their social situation. So sometimes they'll be loners in the wild, and one otter will never seek out another one. But sometimes they'll live in a mated pair like this, or sometimes in groups of up to 20 animals, which they've seen around Lake Victoria. All right, so Jen is getting ready to put in the next bits of food. Are balls, and so you can see how they right away. It drops in and they're over to it. Fred's here. So you see there's little bits of scallops that we've chopped up and put in there. And Fred is really good at diving down and grabbing those, but there'll be some more still inside the ball. So the ball does have a hole in it, so he has to spin the ball around and try to get the right orientation so that the food will come out so he can grab it. I'm sure as soon as Lila's done with her egg, she'll be over too. As you can see, just like the river otters we have here at the zoo, maybe other otters you've seen wherever you live, they're very playful and they love anything new and interesting. They're very intelligent and curious. But especially they love food. So if their food has, if their food comes in a toy, I mean, that's the best toy of all. Fred's really good there at diving down, coming up, eating his scallop, going back down. You can really see how his big webbed feet work when he dives down under the water. And now Lila's here too, so you can watch her spinning that ball, trying to find the hole, making it work just right. You may be familiar with the sea otter that lives on the Pacific coast of North America. They're a lot bigger than these guys, and they spend almost all their time in the water. And they are the ones that actually use tools. These guys, we haven't really seen that kind of behavior, but they typically don't need to. They're not eating as hard of food like clams and sea urchins and things like that.
How long do you think their tails are?
How long is their tail? The things I was reading would suggest that they're anywhere from a quarter to a third of their length. So, I mean, for Fred, he's so big. Like, the tail, like, it's got to be at least 40 centimeters, maybe 50 for him. And Lila's is about 30, I think.
It's a powerful looking tail.
Yeah. Very strong. You see, yeah, Fred's got his ball. He's, Of course, I said it, so now he's let it go. And they love to splash the window as well, just to make it a bit more difficult.
Someone wants to know if Lila is going to have a baby.
We would love it if Lila would have a baby. That'd be very exciting. Babies are a tricky thing with these otters, mostly for us as zookeepers. We don't really know. These guys have never had babies before. It doesn't mean it's not possible. But like a lot of other animals that you may have heard of, like some bears, the giant panda is another good example. These guys sometimes will have pseudo-pregnancies and delayed implantation. So that means even if you know, the parents are doing everything that's required to make a baby, once the male and the female cells come together, they just stop developing. And so sometimes there's this big gap between when the breeding happens and when the babies appear. And sometimes if the conditions aren't right, the mother will just say, okay, I'm not having this baby, and it never happens, even though the breeding occurred. And then they can also pretend to be pregnant functionally. They call it a pseudo-pregnancy. Oh, and he's dropping his, lovely.
You gotta go when you gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. He's showing us his latrine behavior. There, that's a spot we always have to be watching to clean up for them. A pseudo-pregnancy. So a female like Lila can look pregnant, she can gain weight, she can have all the hormones inside her, all her body chemicals acting like she's pregnant, and then no baby ever comes. So these two things together make it really difficult to determine if they're pregnant at all. And if things aren't just right, they have the chemicals, the equipment, the programming inside of them to just not have a baby. So we're hoping that someday maybe we'll have babies here, but we're also not holding our breath.
And how much do they eat in a day, and what do you think their favorite food is?
Oh boy. Okay, you're gonna have to chime in on what their favorite food is too. How much do they eat in a day? Well,
they have a pretty varied diet.
Yeah.
So some days they'll get fish as their main chunk of their diet, and some days they'll get meat. So it depends on the day. But then we have kind of like supplemental scallops and shrimp that we feed them here and there. Eggs they'll get maybe once or twice a week. They get bones twice a week. They really like their bones. And then of course celery one day, carrots one day, and zucchini. Lila loves her zucchini.
that's probably her favorite.
Yeah, that might be her favorite.
Fred doesn't love
Fred-
it as much.
Fred is not that picky, to be honest. He'll eat pretty much anything meat-wise that we put in there.
He likes his fish a lot. Lila prefers her meat, the horse meat we give her, to the fish. Whereas Fred's like, oh yeah, fish, nom nom nom, he loves it. Whereas Lila's kind of like, okay, give me some meat first, and then I'll, you know. Eating her favorite thing. Same with the zucchini. Fred, if you throw a zucchini in there, Fred will be like, oh, come on. Put that later on, and he'll still eat it as well. Well, thank you all so much for coming along and watching with us. We're so glad you guys have chosen to watch with us today. And enjoying our otters. We hope someday to see you soon. Stay safe and stay healthy, and have a great one.